विभागिनि व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ तत्सत्। I don't know why it's not appearing. Maybe it will take a time. So it's showing that it's, so it will go there in a minute also. So we are sort of inching towards the end of Siva Sutra, and in the verse number 38, the sutra number 38 of the third chapter, we had a discussion on how to extend the state of unity consciousness. For the lack of a better word, I'm using that word, that Turiya Dasa, that fourth state where one is established, that state of supreme unity, the Siva consciousness. These are different ways in which we can refer to it. Is saying that you must take it away from the restriction of being the focus of attention in the meditative state, and you try to take it out to your Jagrata, Swapna, and Shushupti dasas. And that we have also discussed much earlier. Trishu Chaturtham. We have mentioned about this. Then he's saying Trayanam Srishti Sthiti La Sabdoktanam Bhavonmukha Tad Avishwanga Tad Antarmukhi Bhavanaya Bhavamayanam Padanam Avasthanam Yad Adi Pradhana Manandahanam Turyakhyam Padam Maya Saktya Achaditam Api तत् तद् विषय भोगादि अवसरेषु विद्युद्वत् आभासमानं तेन अनुप्राणम आत्मानः उत्तेजनं कुर्यात्. Even though the sadhaka during the Bhuthana state, there are certain obstructions in the consciousness as a result of which a person may sort of get pulled into the sansara of activities, but then he has that inner alert. As I always mention, which is one of my favorite books, is called Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung. And there, Carl Jung mentions that, I mean, of course, he was heavily influenced by Indian spiritual traditions, but he says that there is that Atma Purusha, the psychic self, the inner self, who sends out certain signals to you, and you can see those signals in your dreams. But what I find very radical in his interpretation is that in fact your life is like a dream. Whether he was heavily influenced by Shankaracharya is something that we can do guesswork on, but what he's saying is that whatever we experience in life, like the dreams are being interpreted by different psychoanalysts or experts like Freud and others, but he's saying, what about your daily life? If you're relying on dream symbolism to make sense of what might happen, it's quite possible that there is that inner self which also sends out certain signals to you from time to time. And if you intelligently recognize them and make sense of them, then you can spiritually make use of them. You can make use of, so you might get certain signals. But here the Sastrakar is going one step further. He's saying that out of the blue, because of your purva abhyasa and sanskara, positive impressions and your sadhanas, you might suddenly experience that elevating epiphany or that self-awareness. It might just strike you. You suddenly begin to reunite with yourself and you see yourself, and therefore you are not super excited about the external world. Now, the advice or the trick, as we discussed yesterday, is in the previous satsang, was that the moment that sort of a flash of consciousness appears in you, which is already new, don't let it go, but you try to extend it to the other three states, and we have already done a lot of discussion. And then he gives the example. How do you do it? He says, If a man has a wife, of course, man and wife, they go for a film or they do romantic, go on a trip. But sometimes a man may not have anyone with him, but because of that deep yearning, he is able to feel the presence of a woman. You can call it delirium, you can call it hallucination, but he does feel intense love. Similarly, even though a person may not be liberated, he may not be at that pinnacle state of consciousness where he's spontaneously able to experience that Shiva consciousness. He's still at a state where he's yearning, his sadhana, everything, have a few visible and invisible roadblocks. He might, with intense meditation, realize it and be at that point. And then he gives the example of food, and sometimes we feel completely lost while listening to music or food or interaction or dance. All these are given as examples in order to say how to have that tanamayata, tatmaya, tanamaya. And what is that tat here? Is that Shiva consciousness. How do you do it? He gives that sadhana. And then he doesn't stop there. In the sutra number 39, we have done the main meaning. We'll try to get into the commentaries today. Chitta sthitivat sarira karana bahyeshu. Chitta sthitivat. So, all right, so you had that flash in your consciousness, and therefore you suddenly reunite yourself and you're returning to the abode of your inner spiritual self-awareness or consciousness or God awareness, if I can put it in those words. I avoid that word because spirituality is much beyond and much more expansive than a very limited religious consciousness. So, the way, for example, a scientist may be in a crowded train and then he's sitting and he's traveling to his workplace or he's going to the marriage ceremony of his niece. But then suddenly a research proposal, some idea strikes him right in the train, and he opens his notebooks and he starts writing, taking notes. He notes down his idea. This is an area I need. Or he finds a solution to some problem that he was trying to meditate on. It happens. So even though externally he is somewhere else doing something, he is reconnecting with his laboratory. Similarly, the sadhaka, even though he's everywhere, he might reconnect, and he does reconnect suddenly with the divine consciousness. And if he does, he should immediately expand it. He should open his notebook, take notes, jot down his ideas. And what is the advice here? That we should try to expand it to our other states, the waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state. Something even more interesting is saying the way this person meditates on that ultimate thing. He's saying, same way, it's very interesting advice. He's saying, why do you want to just limit that to the game of your consciousness? Why you want to limit it there? Why don't you also expand it? You have that God consciousness. You have that, suddenly you are being aware of that Bhagavad Satta. Why do you want to limit it to your mind? Why do you want to? I mean, you're just going to a party, it's unavoidable. You're going to attend the marriage of your niece, that's fine. So you try to reconnect, you wait for your chance to get back to the laboratory or the library where you would start writing the paper. That's understandable. Or you're in a crowd. But he says, why can't you then extend this particular consciousness, which I'm saying you can do? You try to influence the waking, the dream, and the deep sleep state of what? Of your consciousness, of your mind. So you are trying to permeate your waking, your dream state, and your deep sleep state. These are three states of consciousness when we understand consciousness as a process or a state of the mind. So essentially, you are transforming different states of the mind or different mental states. But these 39 sutras say, Chitta Sthitivat, the way you are trying to unify your mental consciousness or the mental processes with that God consciousness, why can't you, in the waking state at least, to start with, sprinkle that God consciousness? Why can't you extend that preoccupation with the divine consciousness to what? Sarira Karana Vahyeshu. Why can't you extend it even to your physical being? That means the physical processes, the functional aspects of your being. Why can't you divinize everything? That means what? That even if you are taking a bath or you're serving food or you're giving a lecture or you're working in your office or you're showing love and affection to your child, you extend and you permeate all these states with that God consciousness. That means we are, as Sri Aurobindo mentions, we are essentially talking about transformative spirituality where everything becomes actually spiritual. And it's a very powerful aphorism here, that sutra. So that one pointedness doesn't have to be a purely mental phenomenon, but in fact, it can be extended to the physical plane and the functional plane, the vital activities. That is, and if you look at the first, the vritti. So he's saying, Antarmukhayam chitta stito iva. The way you have that inwardly oriented mind and you have that chitta stito eva, the way you are able to attain that one pointed God consciousness. Similarly, Sarira Karana Vahya Bhasatmikayam Bahirmukatayam Api Tena Turyena Anuprananam Kuryat. The trick of sadhana here is Anuprananam. You're pulling it out of a limited sphere where you actually practice it first, you try to expand it, and you want to sort of transform larger circle or spheres of your experience with that divine awareness, so that our life, not only in the waking state but also in the dream state and deep sleep state, that is the mental game, the mental sadhana, but also physically the person sort of, it's quite possible, and a lot of people do that. They're very spiritual, they live very quiet lives, but then they wear normal dress, they go to office, they go to work and do everything, but there comes a time where they would like to extend that sadhana. They sort of drop the mukhota or the disguise in which they are still in sansara. They said, okay, I have had enough and I just want to change everything. But here it doesn't necessarily mean that, but it means that you try to extend that divine consciousness to your functional domains, to your vital domains, and the material domain around you and within you, which include your body. So the commentary. So we'll look at the, I keep going to that. Krishnananda Sagara, who summarizes everything and beautifully written. Ata eva Maha Yoga Nishta Purusha, the person who is seriously meditating, what does he do? We are discussing that. Maha Yoga Nishta Purusha, Tripadadi Anupranina. So you have the Swapna, Jagrat, and Shushupti. Anuprananina Antarmukhatva Avarodha Dasayam Eva Na Kevalam Santushta Bhavet. So to begin with, you see, the first thing is, are you at all having any experience of God consciousness, even for fractions of a second, in a very deep state of meditation? That is level number one. Level number one is satisfied. Level number two, extend that experience of God consciousness towards your waking and your dream and your deep sleep state. That means essentially on the timeline, you are trying to have round the clock that God consciousness touching different aspects of your consciousness. Remember, the God consciousness is C is capital. Here, consciousness is processes in the brain. So all processes in the brain are sort of getting tempered with, in a positive sense, with that God divine consciousness. And the level third is that you extend that God consciousness, that transformative experience you're having, to the functional and the vital domains within you and outside you. So he's saying, Ataeva Mahayoganishta Purusha Tripadadi Anuprananina Antaramukhatva Avarodha Dasayam Eva Na Kevalam Santushta Bhavet. So only meditating and being able to do that Anuprananam in the waking, dream, and sleep state, he's not very happy. What does he do? Kintu Chitta Sthitivat, the way he is able to successfully now um, put that God consciousness is all corners of his consciousness, all consciousness of his mental processes. He can also take it to the physical and the functional domains. Sarira karana vahyeshu. Yatha iyam swatantriya sakti antarmukha rupayam. That Swatantra Sakti, Antarmukha Rupayam, Chitta Sthito. Swatantra Sakti is that absolute sovereignty which is associated with God consciousness, which you experience initially at a mental plane. Whenever we are in that level of deep meditation, whenever you have that deep God realization or God experience, so to say, we are not bothered about what we have and what we do not have. That is the beginning. But then there are later day manifestations of this whole spiritual practice. And then what he's saying, you have that sovereignty the way it happens. Chitta sthito, Turiya Samatkara Ananda Rupina Anupranam Kuryat. The way you are doing it, extend it to your functional and your other activity domains, the material domains. Tatha Sarira Indriya Vishayatmani. Sarira in Indriya, you have that, okay? You try to take it there. Bahir Mukhatvepi, even though like the body, okay, it's in the Annamaya Kosha. You need a bed to sleep, you need food, you need to interact with people because that is the biological seas. And prana, you're breathing, you're taking air in and out, and then you need food, you need to sort of support that pranamaya kosha, the dynamic seas. So, Sarira Indriya Vishayatmini, and all the the sense organs and the Jnana Indriyas, they're connecting with the external objects of knowledge. Bahir Mukhatvepi, so they're externally oriented. Even so, Antara Paramarsha Avastambataha. So, how do they become united with that God consciousness? Because your inward consciousness, inward orientedness of your mind slowly starts and initiates and engineers this process of transformation. Does it mean my nose is going to be a little big or I'm going to look very luminous? No, no, that doesn't happen. Nothing physical happens. He's talking about transformation of the is essentially the whole process still remains uh, a game at the level of consciousness, but he's saying that those aspects, those processes of the mind which are concerned with the body, they will also get transformed. That means you shall not have dehatma buddhi or obsession with your body, you will not have body consciousness. If you don't have body consciousness, the struggles that are associated with body consciousness will not trouble you, like fear of death or disease or I'm this, I'm that, all kinds of things, and craving for some comfort, some pleasure, they will not trouble you. He's saying, Bahir Mukhatvepi Antara Paramarsha Avastambataha Stavara Jangaratmakam Sarve. All the material realities that you interact with, Sarve Vishwamapi Tanamayi Bhavati. And then you are actually saying, you see the whole universe is in me, and I'm this whole universe. Sariram Vishwam, this whole body, everything is me only. Because why? Because you are reaching that Shiva consciousness. And because you are that Shiva consciousness, the manifest reality is nothing but a tiny part of that absolute consciousness. So you see everything is me. Because if Shiva consciousness alone absolutely is real, the manifest visible reality cannot have any independent existence. He remains the fountainhead, he remains the sustainer. There is where everything gets obliterated during Pralayadasa. All this has no existence without that Shiva Tattva, and therefore everything is Shiva Maya. Therefore, he is saying, Tanamai Bhavati Yathuktam Vijnana Bhairave. In the verse number 65 in Vijnana Bhairava, is one of the meditations. Sarva Jagata Swadehova. You see this whole sansara as your body, not your physical body. You are essentially identifying. Now, we do that tera mera. This is me, this is not me, this is mine, this is yours. This is my house, this is your house, all that. Because we are restricting our awareness of the self to this limited physical seas, the Annamaya Kosha that we have. It has a lot of it's a restricted reality. And by identifying with it, then we are saying that we are here, we are not there, I have to go there. At a phenomenal level, all this is possible, but even spiritually, we are getting restricted. Reason why we have restlessness, we have pain, we have suffering. Why? That's going to come next, because there is a feeling of insufficiency, there's a feeling of competition and jealousy, there's a feeling of not having things. You are not full. Only when you have that Shiva consciousness, that fullness again arises in us. Sarvam jagat swadehova swananda bharitam bhavet, and everything is kind of filled with blissfulness. Yugapat Swamriteniva paranandomaya bhavet. How does it happen? It happens instantly. And how? Because you ascend to that Shiva consciousness, you ascend to that divine stage, and once you're there, once you realize that, once you establish in it, then everything appears blissful, because you don't see anything other than Paramashiva. Sarva jagat swadeham va swananda bharitam smaret. You meditate like that. Bhavet, and he's saying now, smaret yugapat swamriteni va paranando mayo bhavet. You see everything. First, from where it is quoted, he's saying, both in 63, bhavet bhavet, in 65, he's saying, you meditate like that. Iti evam hi anandatma स्वातंत्र शक्ति ही सर्वदशासु स्फुटीभूता सती यथेष्ट निर्माणकारिणी भवति. So this is how we have looked at the Kshemaraja. Before we go there, so we are looking at the Kshemaraja Siva Sutra Vimarshani, and in the introduction he mentions etacha tripadadi anuprananam antarmukhatva avastamba tva eva asadya na santushet. He's not happy. Apitu tripadadi anuprananam ityeva. So whatever was mentioned, he's saying, don't know, you try to extend it. Yatha antarmukha rupayam chittastito turyena anuprananam kuryat tatha sarira karana bahya bhava atmikayam bahirmukhatayam api antar vivarsha avastambha valat. The power of meditation, avastambha valat, vimarsha, that vimarshatma, that vichara, because of that vichara, that sharp, subtle contemplation, with the help of, smart contemplation, subtle contemplation, with the help of agama and acharya upadesha, he meditates, as a result of which kramat kramam taratramya bhajati in anupranan. So he graduates from one level unified consciousness to another level of unified consciousness, because he sort of, it's like he laps up different spheres of activities and different spheres in which he's present and divinizes them. Everything sort of transforms into that Shiva consciousness. He enters into Shivahood, Anupranam Kuryat, and that's what is the sadhana which is advised to us. Okay, so as I was mentioning that, whereas in the Krishnananda Acharya, Krishnananda Sagara, Bhavet Bhavati has mentioned, actually in the Siva Sutra Vimarshini, the Vijnana Bhairava shloka which is quoted is Maret. So, Vijnana Bhairava ends Sarva Nama Rupatmakam Vishwam Swasariram Va. So the Nama Rupatmakam, everything, this whole sansara around, you see, this is me only. Chidananda Rasena Paripurnam. It's not that physically we are all over the universe. That will be stupid to think like that. But he's saying it's filled with that Chidananda Rasha, that Satchidananda Swarupa, that blissfulness. It's sort of pervading everything. Paripunnam aplavitam bhavati iti chintaye. That is what we should. This is an advice as to how to contemplate on that Shiva consciousness in order to extend it and spread it over all the aspects of our existence, the material aspect, the vital aspect, the functional aspect. You bring that consciousness to all spheres. संजायते अतएव सर्वस्मिन् बहिर्देशे अभीष्टे वस्तु जाते अतएव सर्वस्मिन् everywhere बहिर्देशे the external aspects of who we are and what we are doing अभीष्टे वस्तु जाते चिदानंद घन तूर्य चमत्कार रसम रसामृत कणिका आच्छुरिततया. It's a very long sentence. What is he trying to say is that a lot of things we want and they happen. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Whatever we are aspiring, whatever we are connecting with, we are connecting with because we want that to benefit whom? If we deeply look within, because we have Dehatma Buddhi, we are buying a shirt for the Atma? No. Buying a car for the Atma? No. For the body, for the mind. For some sanskaras we have about what is befitting us, our status and stuff like that. But he's saying, when you have that Siddhananda Ghana Turya Chamatkara Rashamrita Kanika Achuritataya. So you have that Shivananda, so many words. So you have that absolute Shiva consciousness, a spark of it, you have experienced it, you are extending it. Achuritataya, Mishritataya. Okay? So it's kind of as if, Achurita can also mean that when somebody sort of, they give you what? Oil massage. So you're kind of massaging all aspects of your consciousness with that Shiva consciousness. Massage all over, all aspects of your consciousness, your physicality, your functionality. Massage it with that Shiva consciousness. The best oil to have is Shiva consciousness, the oil named Shiva consciousness. So, Achuritataya Purna Ahanta Parameshwara Rupata Bhavanaya and Purna Ahanta. Look, this will come in the next verse. One is Swatantriya Hani, that is what is Pasubhava, Apurna Manyata, sense of insufficiency. Here he's saying that Swatantra, what happens? Purna Ahanta Rupa. Purna Ahanta means there is nothing anymore lacking in that. That's number one. Number two aspect of it, we have already discussed it earlier. Nothing is outside of it. It's all inclusive, all comprehensive. It embraces everything. It's universal in the true sense of the term. Purnahanta Parameshwara Rupa Ta Bhavanaya. By meditating on that, Bhavitasya Yoginaha. That guy who has practiced that sort of a meditation, that kind of yogi of him, Anuttara Parama Shiva Dhamni Stitir Bhavati. Anuttara means there is no other higher stage than that. That Anuttara Dasa, Unmana stage, not that, Samana stage. Samana stage, you still have some sanskaras in a hidden form. But Unmana stage, you are going to the highest level. There's nothing more than that. You have Atma Vyapti. Ultimately, we have discussed how you go and hit that level called Shiva Vyapti. There's nothing more to gain beyond that. That is that Anuttara Dasa. Or what in Shaiva Darshana, of course, in Vedanta, they say Turiya Dasa, but they mention about Turiya Tita Avastha also. So then what happens? He's saying Yoginaha Anuttara Paramashiva Dhamani Stitir Bhavati. He's fully established there. And then what? Yasmad Evam. The way it happens because of this, Swatmananda Rupa Parama Swatantra Sakti Jagata Swapna Susuptyakhyasu Abastasu Asya Yoginaha Yatheshta Bhava Nirmana Karini Sputa Bhavati. Now, this yogi is already in the ultimate level. Now, the question is, does he sleep? Yeah, the physical body will sleep sometime. Does he dream? Dreams may happen. What will he dream? We dream because we are lacking in something. We want to have them. And Freud says that all dreams are all about wish fulfillment. What you cannot fulfill in your daytime, you're fulfilling in your. Of course, there would be some problems in that kind of a theory because you also have nightmares, and you will have ways in which you would like to explain it. But one basic theory is dream is essentially a compensation for what you cannot have in reality. You dream about it. What would this guy dream about? You have that universal Siva consciousness, which sort of is guiding, shaping, defining his waking state, his dream state, and his deep sleep state. So at that level, there is absolutely no duality. There is no perturbation. There's nothing. And then in this context, this is what, and then he's saying that everything becomes without any problem, and sputa bhavati he mentions. Now, in this context, I would just like to mention we need to discuss what we also is there in the. We had discussed that when we were doing the sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Madhusudana Tika there, on the Shankara Bhashya. We had discussed at length about the connection between the Yoga Sutras and the sixth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. There was a long discussion. Now, there are different stages about which Acharya Madhusudana Saraswati was mentioning, different stages. And what is that Anuttara Shiva Dasa? So let's spend a little time in order to make sense of it. And even also in Vivek Chudamani, we have discussed that. So I just want to touch upon that. So they are these 7 levels or bhumikas through which a person reaches the ultimate level of unified Shiva consciousness or Brahma consciousness or Atma consciousness, whichever way you feel comfortable, you can put it. What happens in the first one is Shravana. The first stage is Shravana. What does he do? He is no more interested in the Apara Vidyas, all kinds of science, physics, chemistry, all that he's doing. But right now, what we're doing is satsang. It's Shravana, Shastra Shravana. So that is the first stage. So you do satsang, you do some Shastra Chintana. That is called Shravana Bhumika, the first stage. What is the next stage? The next stage is called the Manana Bhumika. And what is this Manana Bhumika? So you are constantly, based on what you have read and what you have heard, Shravana includes Artha Nirupana, you start meditating on that. So Nirantara Chintana, about what? That Atma Tattva, what the Shastra says. Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, you meditate on that, you think about it. Then the next higher stage, the third stage, is called Nididhyasana. And this stage, what happens in the Nididhyasana stage, these are all Jagat, Jagat Rupa. You're still there in the material plane, you're meditating. Okay. So you try to withdraw yourself from the phenomenal reality of samsara. It's like you're deciding on a spiritual retreat. The Buddhists do it. Sometimes they go for years, they stay in a cave and they will meditate for long hours in order to purify their consciousness. So they will you are being able to hold that meditation. You're thinking about God, but this is you are able to hold on to that. It's not that you're doing for half an hour, 1 day, 2 days. No, you're continuously doing that. Okay. And what is the fourth one? And the fourth one is called the Vilapani Avastha, and is compared, that says Swapnika Bhumika. The first 3 are during waking state, you will do it. What is Swapnika Bhumika? At that level, so you can say that the Vilapani stage, what happens is, in the fourth stage, you have so many sanskaras and vasanas. What is vasana? The encrypted desires and impressions and memories which are there in us, about which we are not aware. Then you are trying to sort of erase these old files. That fellow in the Bilapani stage, you can call him a Brahmavid. We Shankaracharya sort of calls him in the Vivek Brahman. He's a Brahmavid. And what happens in his case? He is doing Manonasa Vasana Khya. Vasana Khya is more or less achieved here. It's in the fourth stage. It's called Vilapani. There is a kind of termination, erasing away. You're kind of formatting the whole system. Okay. So once a person is able to do that, what happens to him? He's a Brahmavid. The world appears like a dream to him because he is no more taking interest in it. How do you explain it? As a child, remember when your friends, there were no phones those days, but your friend knocks at your door in the evening, we're going to play cricket or football, you used to run, isn't it? And then you reach a stage, you're in college, you have to take out time for your studies. Somebody says, there's a football match. Are you going to watch? He said, no. Yeah, I would go, but not today. You are in a double mind, but you said no. Why? You got to study. And then maybe you watch football matches, you're doing a job and all that. You love football still. But there is a time somebody says World Cup is going on. Oh, really? Very interesting. When it happens? It happens when you know you're going to die or you're not well or there is some bad incident. But most often, when you are truly established in the self, you are a Brahmavid. You are no more interested. Maybe somebody puts on the television set and the match is being relayed and you're looking at it, but there's no emotion in you. You see that as if you're watching a dream because you are no more, you are purely, in a very beautifully way, you're kind of somebody who has been able to distance himself in the best possible manner. Therefore, what is actually phenomenal reality looks like a dream. What is actually a phenomenal, it's real, it is verifiable, but you think it's unreal. It's like a dream. That is the Brahmavid state. This is the Swapanika stage. Then when you go to the next level, the fifth level, is comparable with the Susupta Avastha, the deep sleep state. It's called, the fifth state is called a Prapti Bhumika, or the fifth stage. And you know what happens there? So it is between, you have left the dream state behind, you are now entering into the deep sleep state in your sadhana. These are metaphorical. So this Prapti state, what happens? You are called a Brahmavid Vara. Brahmavid, now you are a Brahmavid Vara. Brahmavid looks at the world, it looks like a dream to him. How does it look like? So far you are concerned, you are already Jivana Mukta. You're liberated in your body. You will have a few diseases. You will still experience the outcome of prarabdha. They will still fructify. But who will see that? Others. You will not see them. You are a Brahma Vidvara, you are Jivana Mukta. For others, somebody gives a gift. He said, oh, he gifted Gurudev the latest model of this watch and it's very costly. Guruji is not affected. He gives it away. What does it? Keep it. He's not concerned. He might just give it to somebody who, in your eyes, may not be deserving that gift because it doesn't have any value for him. He's Jivana Mukta. How does he behave? He behaves as if he's half asleep. He's like drowsy. Even in a dream state, you are seeing everything, right? Sansara, you are still seeing and you're considering this is a dream state. It's like a dream. You are at least watching it, but then you are like half asleep. You're not even interested to see it. So that stage is called Ardha Supta, and that fellow is Brahma Vidvaraha. And he's a Jivana Mukta, least interested in everything. Then we are going to the sixth state. That they call the Turiya stage. He is called Brahmavid Variyan, higher than Brahmavid Vara. Brahmavid treats the sansara as a dream. Brahmavid Vara is half asleep or drowsy. In a metaphorical sense, Brahmavid Variyan is almost in a deep sleep state. He's in a deep sleep state. He doesn't know. He's not affected by whatever is happening. But you know this, I'll tell you the two difference between Brahmavid Varyan and Brahmavid Varishta. This fellow, who is a Brahmavid Vara, Ardha Supta, he can enter into a meditation and then he can come out of that deep samadhi. He'll enter frequently, he'll enter into samadhi and he'll come back. Okay. And then he's a Brahmavid Varyan. He will get into a samadhi state, he cannot come back. Somebody has to wake him up. On his own, he won't come back. Okay. So this Brahmavid Varyan is that level of Vijnanananda. So he's only experiencing that Paramashiva. He doesn't experience anything else. He doesn't have any distraction. Okay. So that is that Susupti. So Anuttara Shiva Dasa we are discussing. And then what is that? Turyatita or Saptama Bhumika is a Brahmavid Varishta. ना वो अपने समाधि से जगता है ना उससे कोई जगा सकता है. Neither he wakes up on his own like this Brahmavid Varyan or Brahmavid, nor anybody is able to wake him up. He's permanently there. He is, it's like Videha Kaivalya. He's no more having anything to do with his body. He's Brahmavid Varishta. He's that Turyatita Avastha. So he's called Brahmavid Varishta. Brahmavid Vara, Brahmavid Vara, Brahmavid Varyan, Brahmavid Varishta. And he's as if he's in a state of deep sleep. And he is absolutely no experience of whatever is happening. He's not absolutely affected by it. That is how he sort of establishes himself in that ultimate level. Okay. Now we have done that. Very interesting. What happens? Again and again, this is the beauty of Sastrakara. He is again going to give us one aphorism where he is going to threaten us that should you stop doing that contemplation, forget about Anuttara Shiva Dasa, you will again experience appearance of desires. 3-4 times this particular thing is kind of hammered into our minds in different sutras. The last sutra in the Saktopaya and this chapter, again and again, Vidya Sanghare, that once you stop doing this, sansar will again appear, you will again see dreams, you will again get craving. There is a saying that if you cheat me once, shame on you. If you cheat me twice, shame on me. But interestingly, if we look at our lives, you would find that our life is a story of going through the act of cheating again and again, which is kind of accepted as a normal thing, that we know this is going to lead us nowhere, and yet we believe maybe it's interesting. Maybe this is different. It can be different. This is a hallucinatory obsession, It's no different from some kind of a psychological illness when it comes to the way we are obsessed with whatever we call as a meaningful life around us, because actually there is no fundamental meaning in it. But the power of our sanskaras, it's so heavy on our heads. It's very difficult to wish it away. It's difficult to drop it. And we continue to carry it. Nobody is forcing us to do it, but we love to do it. As Swamiji said, tomorrow is his birthday. Swamiji said that Sansar doesn't leave me. And you remember the next day, this American lady or whoever she was, she came to him. He was hugging a tree. And he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "This tree is not leaving me." Okay. Now, why am I mentioning is saying that in case we stop doing that sadhana that you're doing, then again the same old problems are going to crop up in our lives. There is no escape from that. And therefore, what he's saying, avilasad vahirgatihi sambahyasya. Avilasad. Right? What is that avilasa? Who's avilasha? I'm already in the Anuttara Shiva Bhava. I'm doing a lot of sadhana. I'm doing Anuprananam in all 3 states of my consciousness. Also, I'm taking it to the domain of my physical seeds and my functionality and my materiality. I'm taking it everywhere. What is going to happen to that? He's saying no. By mistake, You have the karmika mala. Maybe you have overcome maya mala, but you have these three malas, right? Anava, maya, and karma mala. So these impurities, you may have reduced them, but they're still there. And as a result of which, in case those files, those virus laden files you had quarantined, you are deleting them. There are some files you cannot delete them. So you're quarantining. Earlier days, that's what they were doing. The network managers will come. Okay, why did you open this? These are virus files, so you have to delete them. Now, of course, you have very smart solutions. I'm talking about 25 years back. So now what do you do? So he's saying once that file opens, once that start working, it'll corrupt the whole system again. You have quarantined it. You know which folder you're keeping it. It's a troublesome thing. You're not being able to delete it. It's there. You shouldn't touch it. The moment you touch it, the whole thing stops operating. Similarly, he's saying avilasad bahirgatihi. Then again, you become externally oriented. Your inner orientation, your movement towards that Paramashiva Tattva, that Turyatita Avastha, everything gets nullified. But again and again, he does back and forth, right? He says, yeah, you can do that. Again, the Atma thing will flash, and you should again do sadhana. Because that's what happens in the life of many sadhakas, even at very higher stages of their journey. Therefore, the Shastrakara has to give these kinds of, he has to remind us again and again in order to make it very sure that we don't lose sight of it. How does it happen? Why you have desire again? Scientifically explained. You know what happens, he says? That the moment you fail to maintain that unified Shiva consciousness, then what happens? You have Sariratma Buddhi. You slowly, the default system of the thing is that that physical mind, as Sri Aurobindo says, that gets activated. That's why you would find that you have made great resolutions and you do a lot of sadhana in the evening, you go to sleep, and then in the morning, you're back to square one sometimes. Why? When you get up, it's the physical mind which is active, unless you have done some sadhana before sleep. And it's only after a long while that early morning, the moment sleep breaks, you're full with God consciousness. It requires a lot of effort for that. Therefore, what he's saying is that the moment you have that Sariratma Buddhi, and then you have Puryastaka Atmaka Bhava. Puryashtaka is that Shukshma Sarira. It asserts itself. You identify with this is my mind, this I want. All the internal, the cobweb of your past desires, they wake up again. What do? Then you have Apurna Manyata. The moment your consciousness devolves, degrades itself, descends to that physical level, so it feels unhappy. Why it wants house, car? That is the game at this level. It starts looking for things. It is having apurna manyata. It has a feeling of insufficiency. The moment you have a feeling of insufficiency, obviously you want to bring in some sufficiency. And how do you do it? By trying to fill the gaps. That's what is called desire. That is how the desires will happen. The moment they appear, then you want to fulfill them. You will again reintegrate yourself with the reality that you are left behind and return to that external reality. That is what he's saying. And let's straightway go to the last one, Krishnananda Sagara's commentary, because it sort of touches upon everything. Yadatu yoganishta purushaha antarim anuttara turyatmikam shivadasam Atmaswarupatvena naiva vibhavayati. If we fail to create and recreate and stabilize that Shiva consciousness in us, tada dehadi pramatri bhavena, dehadi, then mind and your prana and everything, and then you become a limited pramata. Shiva consciousness, sarvagya, all powerful, all aware. And then you are touched at this level, then you are behaving in a different way. It depends on in which domain we are operating. Dehadi pramatru bhavena nyunata right? Nyunata manyatatmakad. You had, Purna ahanta bhava during the meditation. Now you have Nyunatatmaka, you have a feeling of insufficiency, smallness, restricted consciousness. Anavamalat, in that particular thing, where Anavamala is the one which makes you what? You forget who you are. And then you have Satantrahani and Arpuna Manyata. That's what he's mentioning. Anavamalat, Vahirgachati darsayati avilasad Vahirgatihi sambahyasya. Prithivanta Kala Sahitahi of the Shakti Chakra is mentioning how the game happens. Starting with the Prithvi Tattva, you have 36 Tattvas up till Maya. Kala. Then he's saying Prithivyadi, Prithivyanta Kala Sahitehi, starting with Prithvi till the Kala, Shakti Chakra Akrantehi, you perturbed, disturbed by these lower level energies working on you, Tattvehi, Yonehe, Yo, Anyataram Praptabhya Sambhayah, Karmatva Rupaha Pasu Kathyate. He's now looking for external things to realize. He doesn't want to have self-realization. He becomes a Pasu. He's again that person who is embedded in the material, spiritual, emotional limitations. Tasya Pashoho, of this animal, that Pashu Chaitanya, Vishonmukhatva Rupa, and all the time interested in external objects which we think are sources of our happiness. Eva hetuhu asya natu antah tattvanusangatihi. So therefore, Pashoho tattvatmaka tattat karma anusharinaha. Okay, you have that apurna manyata, then you have some desire, then accordingly you will do some karmas. You will try to achieve something. Then what happens? Karma anusharinaha avilasat. You want to achieve, you want to do certain things, and you have those desires. Apurna manyata rupat, and that's what apurna manyata, not purna ahanta rupa. Anavamala Karad Vahirgatihi Bhavati Vishonmukhatva Rupa Eva Hetu Asya. And at the root of this is that external orientation of the mind. Natu Antah Tattvanu Sanghatihi. It's not that internal orientedness towards self-realization, but an external orientedness which is going to put us in trouble. Ayam aseha, this is the summary of it is saying. What is the purpose of this verse, of this aphorism? Yadi sadhaka janaha, this guy who is doing sadhana, chamatkara rupa turyatmikad, turyatmaka dasataha, he has that state of turyatmaka dasa, he's sitting in meditation, he's practicing, he's living a life of absolute purity and integrity. Sarira indriyadeshu khanavangara vastusu prachuta bhavati, then falls into a level of this anitya sansara. Kshanavangura, drishta nashta, appears and vanishes. You are chasing them again. Kshanavangura vastusu prachuta bhavati, he falls into that. Teshu, in them, tadatmya mithyadhyasena. That is not your real self. That is not your swarupa. It's like a guy who had been de-addicted. His wife had invested a lot of money and time on him. And that poor lady, poor girl had taken him to some rehab and taken care and everything. He had become a very nice guy. And then this guy meets one of his school friends, and that idiot school friend again says, yeah, let's go. No, I have left everything. I'm a different kind of a person. He says, yeah, I'm not going to disturb you. Just let's go and have a cup of coffee and I'm going to come back. And that is the end of the day. He goes to have a coffee, he ends with a drink, then he does back to his addiction in a week's time. And his wife is in tears again. This is what can happen. So, tadatmya mithyadhyasena aham mama atmaka abhimanam. This is me, this is mine. Limited me and limited I, not the universal me and universal I. Karoti tada apurna manyata rupaya anaya, because of that avilasha, avilasaya, because of that craving, janama janmantareshu brahmanashilasya karmatmanaha pashoho. Then you become a karmatma. Karmatma means that is your swarupa. You want to do work, you want to get results. I'll do good work, I'll get good results. This bad work will give me bad results, and you are restless, you want to be secure, you have a feeling of insecurity. continues. Pasoho kevala bahirgatireva bhavati yathoktam panchadasi karehi vidyaranapadehi. In Panchadasi, that great text he mentions. Kurvate karma bhogaya karma kartum cha bhujyate nadya kita iva avartantaram asute brajantuo janmonu janmalavante naiva nibritim. He's thinking about a small insect. Thinking about a cockroach or some kind of maybe so, or you just think about even a duck or something, something which will not get drowned, but it floats on that water. Any living being. And then what happens? You have that whirlpools, it's a river in spade. And then it is moved from one whirlpool to another. And it lives till what point? Till it's hit against something solid. Then it dies, gets terminated, it will continue like that. But this is the cycle of birth and death that we are moving from one hour to another hour, from one whirlpool to another, from one crisis to another, from one moment of loss and depression to another moment of loss and depression. In between, you'll have feelings of well-being. Everything is fine. So you have a moment where you feel bad, you recover, you feel better, you feel bad, so that continues. Brajantu janamonu janamaha lavante naiva nibritim. He doesn't get any respite, however. Kintu tan nibriti upayamaha. What is the way out of it? Satkarma paripakante. He does a lot of punya karma, and therefore antakarana suddhi happens. Paripakante. They fructify. Karuna nidhi. Nidhina uddhrita. And then Karuna nidhi is the acharya, the ocean of compassion and kindness, who is ready to guide you. Is all the time Parama Karunika, Acharya, a good guy who gives you a piece of advice. Vidrita, Prapya Tira Taru Chayam. He somehow somebody picks him up and takes him away. Similarly, the Guru gives a proper advice. No, don't do it. Why? What are you going to get? So he opens our eyes. Vishramyati Yatha Sukham. Somebody picks it up, leaves it on the shore. And that poor insect, then sits below a tree and relaxes. Oh my God, where was I? How did I get into that river? Upadesam. And then there is one guy. He has had that real shock of his life to his life experience. Then he starts analyzing. Why did he get into that whirlpool? He's saying, Upadesam avapyevam acharya tattva dasinaha panchakosha vivekena labhante nibritim param. It's quite possible that you get Acharya Upadesha, and once you get it, you meditate on it. Then you do Panchakosha Viveka. What is Atma? He's saying that Atma is what? Panchakosha Atita Avastatraya Sakshi. It's awakeness to the three states and is beyond these. It's neither my body, nor my mind, nor my emotions, nor my deep sleep, nor my state of dreams. You go beyond that, is the witness of everything. I'm none of these that I associate myself with. Then he gets the ultimate freedom. Okay? He's saying yogi janaha tattva vivekena, which are tattva vichara, param nibriti moksha dharmam papnuvanti, they get the liberation. Evam cha sarvatha karmatva rupa pasehi vinirmukta. Because of this karma, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll build this, I'll build that. That is the chain which sort of holds us, bounded, restricted, limited. Tad abhave paseshu badhyante sambhayasya jayante. So otherwise, without that, you are trapped, and then that is what will happen to us. In the Siva Sutra Vimarshini, the everything is same except for that Kalika Krama. I will be only looking at those verses. Yada vidya anubhritataya vikalpa vidhiyogataha sivadin naiva jhatiti samudbhavate bhavayate khilan. Yada vidya bhritataya, when we are deluded by our ignorance. Vikalpa vidhiyogataha, then we want to do so many things. Sivadin naiva jhatiti, then you won't get that, Anuttara Shivadas. You are not going to reach there. Samudbhavayate khilan. Okay. Then what? What happens? Tataha suva suva bhava, subha and ashubha, auspicious, inauspicious, bhavaha, lakhyante tad vasatvada, and then as a result of this, you are trapped in this whole world of pleasure and pain. Asubhevyasya bhavebhyaha param dukham prajayate. Then he does some wrong things, asubha karmas. Then he gets a punishment. He'll go to narka. Param dukham prajayate. Lots of problems he faces. Atathyam kalpanam kritva. False imaginations about life. This will give me happiness and blah blah blah. Pachante narakadishu. He's cooked. They imagine these are all narkadanda imaginations in order to that purgatory or whatever. You won't go there. So pachyante narakadishu, you are punished there, tormented there. So te doseisha dahyante venavo vanina yatha. You know how? You have these dry bamboo trees and they are hitting against each other and there is a spark of fire and the whole thing burns down. Swadasi, it's all creation of them.